Kerry Keating, your big thing, I know you, like myself, have been around college athletics on the inside a long time. Your father, a former director of athletics, you played college basketball, you coached college basketball. I've been a Carolina fan as a bold North State native for 56 plus years right now. And it's stunning to me that I grew up going to games at Carmichael Auditorium, not arena. I went and later worked in the Dean Smith Center, the Dean Dome. And now, because of the business of college basketball, you could be seeing an icon of college basketball not only on Tobacco Road, but also in all of the sport going away as North Carolina apparently is looking to maybe move off campus to the site of the former Horace Williams Airport. The Dean Dome going away. Kerry Keating, your big thing of the week.
Yeah, there's a lot going on over in Chapel Hill right now. Obviously, with Hubert kind of coming out and saying they need to restructure some things internally for their staff, and whether that was a knee-jerk reaction after the Duke loss because Duke had already had that set up is really irrelevant. It's something that needs to happen in college basketball as the business really becomes a formalized business, if you will.
Right.
So it's just them catching up to that. But in that time of catching up, there's also a lot of transition. Will they make the tournament? Who will come back off this roster? Will they be able to actually add said GM and support office that Hubert talked about? Will Bubba Cunningham still be around? I mean, you got to think about all the changes that ADs are making right now, Michael, and you're obviously familiar with this. This is not the way that they were brought up in the business. This is not really what they were built to do. Can some of them, shape shift into being into the current environment? Of course they can. And some of them are financially compensated enough to be incentivized to do so. But some of them just physically and mentally just don't want to do that. There's all of these factors that are going on around Carolina. And then you throw in all of a sudden, we may be moving the Dean Dome and not playing on Roy Williams Court. And the historical aspect of what Carolina basketball stands for, not just changing in the results that we're not accustomed to in the last 4 or 5 years, and certainly this year, but now a completely different environment and off campus at that. This is the stuff that changes really generations of what has already been put into place. And there's a big task at hand, not just to relocate the arena, but everything that comes with that relocation, the historical aspect of what Carolina basketball means to the NCAA. And in this transition, there's a little bit of a parallel right now that the entire NCAA basketball landscape is transitioning into professionalization. This may be a reaction on a bigger scale to have to make the change for Carolina basketball as this change is being made. It may not be sustainable to play in the Dean Dome, to play under the current environment. You need something shiny and new. Now, coaches always dreaded that. New ADs and new arenas, we always joked about that. That's what gets you fired. Well, we're not really sure of how the dynamics are of who's hiring and who's firing necessarily when you have two icons like Coach Smith and Coach Williams in place. But there's obviously a lot of smoke being billowed from Chapel Hill right now. And it's not gray and it's not white. It's kind of light blue. Everyone's trying to figure out, will it stay light blue and will it move? Like when there's smoke and they're changing when the Pope comes, right? Is there going to be a change over in Chapel Hill? What color is the smoke going to be? Well, there's smoke enough to know that there's a fire over there and we got to figure out how we're going to put it out. Or are we just going to move to a new location once that fire is burning? And it's certainly burning pretty bright right now over in Chapel Hill.
David, you've covered Carolina basketball your entire time that you've lived here in North Carolina as a student, as a professional. You've never seen Carolina play in any other building of the Dean Dome. As an alum, how does that idea of moving off campus make you feel?
It doesn't bother me, in any emotional sense. I've always kind of taken an arm's length view, even though I have a diploma from UNC. I've tried to cover the Tar Heels objectively, like I cover all of these teams. But I do flash back to our preseason conversation with Hubert Davis, where I specifically asked him this question, about the future of the home of Carolina men's basketball. And he said basically the most important thing to him is walking into a building that bears the name of his mentor and former coach when he was a player for the Tar Heels, Dean Smith. Now, you know that whatever location they choose in Chapel Hill, they're still going to be honoring Dean Smith. But Hubert also implied that he wants the current Smith Center to remain the future home. He played in that building, assistant coach in that building, media member in that building, and obviously head coach in that building. And it means even more to him than it might to many of the Carolina fans out there who hold it near and dear to their heart. We know from other contexts that when you move an arena away from the students, it can be a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing, but the Miami Hurricanes home football environment today, where it's a long trip from Coral Gables, Florida, where the Canes play, is nothing like what it once was. Now, they did not have, the way Alabama and Texas and others, Miami never had the traditional, Ohio State right there on campus, Michigan, Notre Dame, et cetera, right there on campus home football setting. But it not just causes emotional indigestion, especially for older Carolina fans. There's finances involved, right? You talk about bells and whistles. Some of that is for recruiting and perception and image. A lot of that is for money reasons, right? If your concourse is messed up, which it is at the Smith Center, it's going to impact concession sales. It's going to impact, in the Smith Center's case, how many luxury boxes you can have. A lot of people believe that the future of sports involves partly, and we've seen this in baseball, not building as many concrete donuts that can squeeze 80,000 in for a baseball game, but building these smaller sort of niche stadiums which have smaller capacity because more people are watching on TV, et cetera, and attendance is down in some contexts, but more amenities and more concession sales and more jersey sales and more luxury boxes, so that maybe the model to bring in 35,000 in baseball of the right people can be more money than bringing 60,000 in the concrete donut stadiums of my childhood. There's an equivalent to that in college sports, and UNC is wrestling with all of those details. But if it's any choice besides the renovation of the current Smith Center, which is one of the options on the table, absolutely, Mike, you're talking about tearing up almost 40 years of tradition in the building that bears the name of one of the most famous figures in the history of college sports.
Carolina's already taken auditorium off of Carmichael. When they say Carmichael Arena, I don't know if they mean Carmichael Gym over at NC State. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But as an AD, I definitely understand the financial realities of the present day. But it's interesting that Duke can make it work with Cameron Indoor Stadium. Kansas can make it work with Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I long for the day that NC State played at William Neal Reynolds Coliseum on their campus. And to think of Carolina now going from the Tin Can to Woolen Gymnasium to Carmichael to the Smith Center and now to something that's going to have some, grotesque corporate name stamped on it. And it'll just be different just so people can get a beer after the game. I didn't like that. And especially when you talk about the experience, North Carolina just invested a king's ransom in their football program with the hiring of Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi and the host of people that are working over in the shadows of the pines at Kenan Stadium right now. But there is no worse football experience for a fan than Kenan Stadium. It's dangerous. It's uneven. It's dark. Night games there are filled with people who have been drinking all day, which again, I don't really mind, but at least give them a flat place that's well lit to go into. The Smith Center has its challenges, but there are things that you could do. Tennessee, in a building, Thompson Bowling Arena, that Kerry knows all too well, that has much the same footprint and architecture of the Smith Center, aside from it's not as compacted in like the Smith Center is with its geographical surroundings. They made it work there. It's just interesting the timing of all of this and where you're going to put the money or where you're going to get the money to put these things together. I don't know. I tell you one thing. Bubba Cunningham has a lot of things on his plate right now, and this just seems to be one thing that I really wouldn't want to bite off, but it seems like the powers that be above him are going to bite it off for him. And then, like the proverbial mama bear or mama bird, push it back into his mouth. Tough situation right now at Carolina, and one that we'll be following here on Timeout and the North Carolina Sports Network.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last